tell you, I have never been more optimistic about the future of this nation, of all nations, of this planet, and I want to show you why. So we're going through, I thought I'd start with good news. You want to start with good news? Okay, so I want to share with you, there's a lot of really, really good news. The good news is that we already have all the solutions to all the big problems in the world. Bruce Lipton and I, isn't Bruce awesome? Didn't you enjoy? I am so honored to be on this stage with so many of my colleagues, including my dear brother and colleague, a spiritual brother, Bruce. Most of us present together in other countries. It is rare that we come together in the United States of America. So George and Sadina, thank you for inviting us to America. We're happy to be here. Bruce and I were invited to speak at the United Nations in New York not long ago. And what I'm about to say to you is part of what I said to them, that we already have all the technical solutions. They were saying, you know, let's get all the scientists and the engineers and the spiritual leaders and the religious leaders and the community leaders together in a big room and figure out these problems. And I said, you know, we did that. We already did that. And I want to share with you, there's so much good news out there that we typically don't have. So for example, we already have all the food we need to feed every mouth of every child, every woman, every man on the face of this earth right now. And the UN tells us we have food security for at least another 50 years, barring some unforeseen event like an asteroid impacting the earth or something like that. It is not the lack of food that is the reason that our global family, our brothers and sisters, are going to bed hungry. It's the lack of priority. It is yet to become a priority to get the food to the people that need it. But we have all the food that we need right now. So that is not the problem. We already have the technology. We have the technology to bring safe, clean, sustainable energy to every home that wants it with zero greenhouse gases, zero fossil fuels, and we've had that technology for over 60 years. Over 60 years, we've already had this technology. We already know how to create economies. Listen to this. We know how to create economies that are based on cooperation and sharing rather than scarcity and competition. Isn't that a very different way of thinking? Because our entire global economy now is based upon competition. It's based upon scarcity. But we already know how to do this. And what we're doing here today, we already know about our bodies. We already know how to reverse disease. I just want to say this to you. Every organ in the human body is now documented with the ability to stop the damage that has already occurred, to reverse the damage, and to heal and rejuvenate even the organs we were told could not do so. Spinal cord tissue, pancreatic tissue, heart tissue, brain tissue. All of those organs are now very, very well documented in the laboratory. We know that these organs are intelligent, that they have the ability to reverse disease. The key is they have to be given the environment that allows it to happen. And we talk about environment. Some of it's external, some of it's nutrition. Bruce talked about that. A lot of it is the emotional environment. And we're just beginning to learn about emotional environments. Beginning to learn about it in terms of science. Maybe you and I have understood this for a very long time. But science is only now catching up with what so many of our indigenous ancestors have told us for a very, very long time about the power of emotion in the human body. I'm just going to share this with you right now. Bruce and I, and some of the other authors, we had the honor of knowing Candace Pert before she passed in 2013. Sure. Candace Pert was the Harvard-trained medical doctor that wrote the book Molecules of Emotion, and was the first doctor that linked human emotion with a very specific chemistry in the body. They're called neuropeptides. And what we now know is that when you and I have an emotional experience, our body creates chemistry, and depending on how we feel about that experience, our body deals with that chemistry in different ways. If we're having joyous experiences, you don't typically hear about people being stuck in joy. That's not usually a big problem. You therapists, you don't have people coming to you and say, God, I've got so much joy in my life. Can you help me out? So it's the trauma, it's the unresolved hurt in our lives that cause the problems, and a lot of those problems show up in later years, in the second half of life. And now we know why. We're living longer, and so our bodies are beginning to express these unresolved traumas, and this is so fascinating to me. one of the things that Candace discovered, and she published, we had the opportunity to talk to her before she passed about this, was that the human body creates these neuropeptides, and we store them in very specific organs in the human body, unless they are resolved immediately. If you have the ability to resolve your hurt immediately, then you metabolize those neuropeptides from your body, no problem. But if you're 3 years old, I'll just tell you right now, I come from a very dysfunctional alcoholic family. My father was the abuser. It was an abusive alcoholic family. My mother and my younger brother and I. And I'll tell you, when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, you don't have the emotional tools to know how to deal with the trauma, with the hurt. So what our bodies do, our bodies are so smart. What our bodies do is they will store those neuropeptides in very specific organs, and they'll keep them there for us until we have the ability to resolve that hurt. But if we don't know that, those chemicals, those neuropeptides, they're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for a very, that was my neuropeptide imitation. Did you like that? Waiting and waiting and waiting. For a very long time, they begin to express in ways that we call illness and disease. Now, where this gets really interesting is that men and women preferentially store these hurts in different organs of the body. And I find this fascinating. Women typically will store the hurt in their heart. They will store it in the organs they associate with nurturing, the breast, uterus, ovaries. Men, this is so interesting to me. We also will store our hurt in our heart, but you know where else we store it is throughout the entire cardiovascular system. You know, we don't limit it just to the heart. We say, hey, you know, the whole heart system. But we also store it in the organ, men, that's associated with masculinity, consciously or subconsciously, in the prostate. And this is so interesting to me because subconsciously the thinking is that prostate is what expresses our masculinity. It's what keeps us safe. So, hey, the bigger the prostate, the safer we are, right? Look at what's happening in the world. There's a worldwide epidemic of precisely these kinds of diseases, the cancers that are expressing in this way. And now that we understand these relationships, we're beginning to understand how to heal those relationships, how to free those neuropeptides from the organs, how to allow them to metabolize from our bodies. And it can happen at any age.